So hello everyone, I hope this is okay, because every time I actually want to start a Twitch, it asks me for which game I'm playing, so I guess this is a game of Kentico. So thank you all for joining. Just like last time, I will share a link for you if you want to join the GoToMeeting if you want to talk to me. I'll share that in the chat window, and I should probably start the GoToMeeting as well, right? So just give me a second to do that, and then I'll jump right into the topic of MVC widgets. Okay, now I have to confirm this. Okay, so the GoToMeeting should be up and running. Okay, so I'll just mute myself. So feel free to join if you want, and let me know what you want to ask. Again, this is the Kentico or Boring Kentico show. If you want to talk to me and ask about anything related to Kentico or in general web development, feel free to send me a message in the chat window or join the GoToMeeting and talk to me. But then you will of course be heard on the recording as well. This is the second episode. Sorry, I'm a bit ill, so I will try to talk a bit less than the last time. But what I wanted to say is that the last episode you will find on Twitch, but when Twitch deletes that recording, the recording was also available on YouTube. If you open on devnet.kentico.com the article about the Boring Kentico show, at the end you will see the upcoming dates and topics, and I will try to add links for the recordings here. Yeah, so if you want to take a look at something I talked about, just take a look here. There will be a link to all the recordings. But let's jump into the topic for today. As long as there is nobody here on GoToMeeting, I will start talking about the MVC widgets and how to build one. Now, I already published an article about this about a month ago or so. You'll find it on DevNet as well. Here about build portal engine widget in MVC. Now, first of all, I should probably explain what an MVC widget is. If you know Kentico or used to work with Kentico portal engine, I'm sure you remember web parts, you remember templates and things like that that were actually used to compose a page. Portal engine was actually composed from all these components that you could drag and drop onto the surface of a page, and then voila, everything was nice and ready to be published. With MVC, the situation is a bit different because with MVC, the developers get much more control and much more power over how the page looks like. But still, editors wanted to use the drag and drop functionality, so that's why we came up with a new way how to build widgets and components in MVC. And basically, MVC widget is like a component in MVC. It's composed from a controller, model, and view. So it's pretty much like a normal page or any other component in MVC. With a little bit of a difference that for the extensions of MVC based on Kentico components, we actually give you the tools how to do it properly, and share it and so on. But I'll get to that. First of all, I'll explain what that is and how it actually looks like. I created, in scope of this article, I created one MVC widget, which was a Bing map. That was actually a showcase of how we can take a portal engine widget and convert it to an MVC one. Today I will try to create another one, a bit more complicated. So here you see how it should look like. This is, I think, how the portal engine widget looked like and how the widget properties look like. Yeah, so when the editor wanted to use that widget on a page of their websites, they had to drag and drop the widget on the surface of a page, and they had to provide some values. Here I think it was coordinates like longitude and latitude, how big the map should be, and how high it should be. Yeah. With MVC, explained how to do that. You see that the dialog window is much easier. Only the latitude and longitude is here, plus the initial zoom, so it looks a bit cleaner. So it should be a more streamlined process for editors. And it should also be a much nicer way how to build them for developers. So if you know MVC, I'm sure you'll love it. But let's get to building the widget. So here you see it's just about creating a controller, registering it as a widget, and providing a way how that widget should be displayed on the live side. So this is the actual view how the widget is going to be displayed. Now today I wanted to create a widget. I didn't really have many ideas for which widget would be the most useful, so I asked our MVPs, our most valued professionals, and one of them actually gave me a nice idea about creating a Giphy selector. So the use case is that editor would be creating a page, and in the middle of a page they want to include some animated GIF from Giphy.com. We all know those, right? So it would be a nice integration, a nice way how they can make their content more entertaining, I would say. So let's see if I can build that in an hour and 52 minutes, right? I'm not really giving any credit to the MVP who proposed it. So if he's right now looking at me, at least the least I can do is wave to him. Hi, he's from Australia, so that's why I'm turning my laptop around. Okay, now I hope I'll be able to put it back to its original position. But the rest of the Twitch stream will be in a normal way, so not turned around, right? So first of all, what I will need to do is store my Kentico instance. Now I already have one installed and running sorry, under the domain MVC widgets.local. So when I log in here, and it's local, so I have no password. This will take a second. I'll also load the live side. So you'll see that this is a simple dancing goat. This is just a simple sample site. I think on the contact page there is the widget with the Bing map, right? This is the original widget I created for the article, the Bing map. And here in pages, I think I'll be actually able to show you the dialog of the Bing map widget as well. So I'll switch to contacts page because that one actually contains the page builder. So the page builder is a feature that actually enables me to use MVC widgets on a page. Not all pages actually feature the page builder. Which page actually features it, you will find you will see because there is the page tab available. Yeah. So here this is my Bing Maps widget. You can see when I try to configure it, it shows me the dialog window exactly as in the article. So currently it's I think it's pointed to the Kentico headquarters. Yeah, this is where we are. This is actually where I am right now. A little bit. Oh, I think I'm somewhere here, in the middle of this building. Cool. So you see how this actually works. And let me open Visual Studio. I'll stick with 2.17 for now. This will again take a second to load because I'm on a laptop. And I will open the solution where I implemented the widget. Now there are two solutions. Yeah, with Kentico MVC you have to have two solutions. One solution is for the administration interface that contains a lot of code for all these components that you see here, for all the modules or the applications. Yeah, so that's one solution. And there's another solution for the live side. So when you're working on the live side, when you're developing the live side, you don't really need to wait for compilation of the whole Kentico solution, but you only wait for the MVC frontend to be compiled. So it's easy for debugging. It's easy for a lot of other stuff. But also when you're implementing widgets, those widgets are implemented on the live site, on the MVC solution. Yeah, so that's much easier, and it's much faster to compile. Now I'm just opening the solution on another window. So this is gonna take just a second, provided I can find out which one is it. It is. I think it's the web app. Okay, now I think I can move it to the other window. Okay, Visual Studio says it's preparing solution, so I'm always wondering what it's doing when I'm looking at that message. So everything seems to be loaded, but I still see the preloader here. Okay, here we go. Now let me drag and drop this. Okay. Oh, and this is not the right solution. Sorry. I think I opened the wrong one. Let's try this one. But this is interesting because the solution that I opened is actually in the same folder. So I have no idea how that solution file got there. Okay. I think this should be the right one. MVC widgets, Bing Maps widget. Yeah, I think this is the right one. I'm getting a lot of errors because of the views, but that's fine. That will go away when I compile it. So I think this is okay. This is correct. Let me check in IIS because the IIS will need to point to the website that I'll be changing. So I'll just check if that is correct. So that will be the MVC widgets. And in basic settings, I should see then go to MVC. And I think that's the right folder. K12. Then yeah, this is the right project. Okay. So I can close this. Now in the MVC widgets, you'll see that there is the view for the Bing Maps widget. I think there's also going to be a controller for it. Oh no, that's in a different project. So there's going to be just the view in the original project. And by that I'm touching a bit on the actual implementation, because the controller of the Bing Maps widget, you see it's in a different project. It's in a library that is called Bing Maps widget. That's just a simple class library. When we look at the properties, the output type is a class library. And this is actually used to hold all the functionality, the whole implementation of the widget. This is for one specific reason, and that is when I want to share that with someone, I want to be able to do that via NuGet package. Yeah, so I'm trying to get as many as much code as I have here away from the live site. Yeah, then on the live site, on another live site, I can consume it via NuGet package. So I'll pretty much do the same here with a new widget. Let's add a new project here. It's gonna be again a class library. I'll call that Giphy selector. Could call it Giphy selector widget to make it the same naming convention. And then of course this actually copies the MVC structure. So I'll add here a folder called controllers, and I'll add here also a models folder and a views folder. Now the views folder is a bit tricky because we cannot create a view here The thing is that all the views that are used on an MVC site need to be in that site, right? So that's why there is a view here. But actually, for the creation of the NuGet package, I will need to have that view here. So I'll just copy it manually later. Yeah. Or there can be a PowerShell script that would actually take the view from here and put it into a specific folder in this project. That can be triggered by a build, for example. Yeah. But that's for a different video. So I created. First thing I need to do is actually create a model for the widget. Now my widget should be quite simple. What I'm looking for. Well, let me actually start an Epic Pen so I can draw something on the screen again. Oops, where did that toolbar go? Here it is. So what I'm looking for is a simple widget that would display an image here. Yeah. So this is going to be a simple image HTML tag. But what I'm also looking for is to have a bit of a different appearance in the administration interface. So in the admin, I actually want here to be a toolbar that actually lets the user search for a specific GIF. And based on the query, I want to display him a few images, let's say a top 5 or something like that. And he's going to be able to pick one of those that were found. Yeah, for this specific widget to be displayed. So the administration interface will be a bit different than what I want to render on the live site. So let me actually remove all this and close Epic Pen for now. But first of all, what I will need to do is define a model. When you're creating or defining a model, you're actually defining what should be stored in the database in the scope of this widget. So let's call this model, not Bing, but Giphy selector widget properties. And I think we don't need to, we need to inherit from iWidget properties. So okay, copy pasting. Okay, now you see that there are issues because this project doesn't really know iWidget properties. That's because I will also need to include one NuGet package. Let's check the NuGet packages for this whole solution. And I think I'm looking at something named or prefixed with Kentico. Let's check. So I will definitely need Kentico libraries. You see that it's installed for both of these projects, so I'll install it for Giphy selector widget as well. I'm actually installing the latest one, but the 12.00 should be sufficient. Now hopefully this won't take too long. And in the meantime, let's check where we are. So this is the properties file, right? I'll also need another file that will be the view model. Now the properties actually define what's stored in the database for the widget. The view model defines what comes from the controller to the view. So there can be some additional data. Typically it's an API key or anything that the controller can get proactively from a database, from a configuration file, but does not need to be stored in the database, yeah, for each widget. So in my case, it's going to be also an API key for the Giphy.com. Okay, now my Visual Studio does not really handle well multitasking, but let's call this one Giphy selector widget view model. Okay. Okay, see, it's installing the NuGet packages, so it's gonna take a moment. Okay, it's already added the package, so I think we're coming to an end. I can actually hear the fan of my laptop going louder and louder. Okay, cool. So let's see if we have the iWidget properties. Still not, so I will probably need the other NuGet package as well. So I think this is this one. I think the 12.00 will be sufficient. That way I don't have to get the new packages, to download the new packages, but only add a reference to this project, because I already have those packages installed in the other two projects. Okay, we'll see how that goes. And I will also need to move this file, which is called class1. I'll move it to models and actually rename it to be Giphy selector widget properties. Now the namespace is basically up to you. What I did with the Bing maps is actually called the namespace Kentico community Bing maps widget, so I'll stick with that, but it should be something unique enough for your company, for example. So let's call this one Kentico community Giphy selector widget. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same naming convention. Cool. So let's see how this process goes. I think it's still installing. I think it should be fine now. I think this one should be 12.00. Accept. So I'm fixing the mistake from before. I just want to keep all the packages at the same version for all of the projects in my solution. So right now I think it's adding the new libraries. Okay, I think we can start with defining the properties. So the property will probably be the URL for the Giphy image, and we will definitely need an API key, right, for the service. But this can actually go into configuration. No, I'll just leave. Okay, it's finished now. So let's do that here. I still don't have the iWidget properties. How is that possible? So the iWidget properties are coming from Kentico Page Builder. And Kentico Page Builder, I think, comes from the NuGet package. Oh, this one is still not installed. So I will need these two, and I will also need, for the representation of the administration interface, I will also need a search query, we can call it. This is the property where the editor will actually add the search query when he searches for the right image, but we will not need that for the Vue model, because there we will already have the URL for the GIF image. And I think this is all that I can think of right now. So I'll just add these into those respective files, and we'll see if we will need something more for the implementation. I'll just give it a second to install the Kentico ASP.NET ASP.NET MVC packages. I think that's the one that I actually need for except for the iWidget properties interface. Right, so all these packages already exist, so it's just a matter of adding the reference to my new class library project. Okay, I think that we are finished now. Perfect. So when I go back to properties, I should see the using Kentico Page Builder Web MVC, which is fine. And I should also see that in the Vue model, but the Vue model does not need to inherit anything. Yeah, the Vue model is just my class that I need to get the data from the controller to the Vue, and it's pretty much up to me what I wanna transfer there. So in this case, what I want to transfer is URL, and probably, I'm not sure if I'll actually need an API key here. We'll see. I'll just leave it as it is. The same I will need here. String URL. And the thing is that here for the properties in the documentation, you will find that you actually should decorate these properties with a specific editing component attributes. Now I'm actually aiming for creating an inline page editor. So I will not do this, because this would actually mean there will be a dialog, configuration dialog available. But I actually want to have it all available in the inline page editor. So I'll not do that. I'll just leave it as it is. This actually ensures that this URL will be stored in the widget data when I save everything. So I'll just leave it as it is for now. And I'll add a controller. I'll call that Giphy selector widget controller. And I'll just copy this thing from the previous controller, but it's actually not hard to come up with it based on the documentation of Kentico. Now what you will see here is that there needs to be a namespace. So in my case, it's a Giphy selector widget namespace. The controller will be called Giphy selector widget controller. It should inherit from the widget controller. And here you need to define the properties. This is the properties file that will be used to store the data in the database. So in my case, it's Giphy selector widget properties. This can actually go away. And the last part I need to do is the registration. So here I need to register that this is actually a widget, in which namespace it actually sits. So this is going to be Giphy selector widget. Provide the class of the controller, Giphy selector widget controller, and I'll include the namespace here, and provide some name and description for it. So this is Giphy selector widget, shows selected Giphy image or animation. Now here I can also select icon class. If you look at the documentation, I can jump into the section where we talk about widgets. So developing widgets in MVC. And I think that there is a registration and icon class. And the icon class is described somewhere. Let me check. Oh, here it is. So icon class, the font icon class displayed when viewing the widget in the widget list. So when I look at the font icon class, I can select the one that actually fits my widget the most. I think this one actually works. Let's see if there's something better. But I think that one is actually good. Yeah, you can pretty much pick any one you want from here. Yeah, let's pick this one as an example. I think this one is quite nice. That's a map or icon picture. Let's use this one. So that's for the definition of how the widget's going to be displayed in the administration interface in the list of widgets. And then we need to provide what the widget actually does here. So what I'm doing here is it takes the properties from the database. It should create the view model. In this case, it's going to be new Giphy selector widget view model. And in the view model, the only property I defined is the URL. So it's pretty much just going to copy the URL from the properties. Yeah. The difference between the properties and the view model, I can actually take the properties and provide it to the view directly. But the best practice is actually have two files because there may be differences between them. You may need to store a different thing than what you want to have available in the view. So that's why it's preferred to have a view model, create it in the controller, and return it to the view. Now the partial view will actually return the widgets view. So in this case, it's going to be widgets Giphy selector widget Giphy selector widget. Now the good thing is that when you create a NuGet package out of this, whoever wants to consume that NuGet package, when they install it, they will get the view in its open source form. Yeah. So when I create here a section or folder called Giphy selector widget, so I'm basically creating the structure that I defined here in the partial view. So I'll create here view, and that's going to be the Giphy selector widget. It's going to be a partial view because it only defines how this component should be rendered, and the view will be available in its open source form to whoever consumes it. So then if they want a different HTML structure or achieve a different HTML output, this is the way how they can do it. So Giphy selector widget, it's going to be empty. That's fine. Okay, now when I have the view rendered, it's an empty view. I can define the model. Oops. So I'll put this here. So the model is going to be Kentico community, not Bing Maps, but Giphy selector widget. And I should get some help here. Why am I not getting help here? I think I also need to include something here. Oh, right, because I'm in a different project, sorry. The thing is, I also need to reference the Giphy selector widget before I can use it here. So my mistake, I'll add the reference here. And the reference is for the Giphy selector widget. It's the project right next to it, so should be easy enough. Now I should get the help here. Still nothing. We need to compile this one first. Okay, it succeeded. I think here I don't need to change anything, so I should be able to do that now. Oh, there we go. Giphy selector widget. And the Vue model is actually in the, it's not properties. Let me check if I actually have the right namespace here. Giphy selector widget Vue model. Why am I not seeing that? I see the properties and I see the controller as well. Oh, because this is not public. That's my mistake, of course. So now it should be fine. Cool. And the way how it's going to be displayed is going to be just a simple image source. And it's going to take the URL from the model.url. I could put here some alt text. Of course, I can also add another property in the properties so that the editor can specify whichever alternative text they wanna use there. Yeah, but just for the sake of this example, I'll just keep it as it is for now. And this is everything. I don't need to do anything else here in this view. Yeah. In this case, it's not gonna display anything because the URL is not defined anywhere. So I could put here also something like if model URL so it's not displaying actually an empty image tag. Something like this, yeah. And that's all. Now it's gonna always render a white space because there is no way how I can change the URL because in the properties I didn't define any configuration attribute. So in this case the editor would not be able to do anything with the widget. So that's obviously not what I want to do. And for that case I can actually debug or not debug but build everything and show you that on the in the administration interface. I hope that in the section, let me actually check that quickly, if in that section I have any restrictions on how that should be displayed. And I think this is actually a different solution than the dancing goat. Yeah, this is not a dancing goat. This is MVC widgets MVC, so let me switch that. And IIS. So this one, I think, should go to another, yeah, to MVC widgets MVC. Okay, now I fixed it. So right now I also need to switch the site here because I'm no longer. Oh, let's run this site. It's gonna take a second because I just switched the site. And I will also need to do the switch in the administration interface because right now I have a different solution underneath. because the project that I'm working with here is MVC, which is MVC. It's not a dancing goat. Yeah, so I'll need to change this side here as well. But I think I have the Bing Maps widget there as well. So this is just going to take a second to load. But when we're finished, we should see the website. Oops. Now we see an error, but that's fine, I think. That's because I haven't switched the site in the administration interface, so let me do that. I go to sites. Oops. Okay, so I'm no longer running the Dancing Goat MVC, but on the same domain. Yeah, you see that these two sites have the same domain. I'm running the MVC blank site. Let's see the live site now. I think now it should be fine. So now it should display the home page based on the home controller. That's this one here. And the view is actually index view. So it should display left, middle, and right columns. And there is only one widget here. So nothing more but the bunny headline. Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm seeing here. Yeah, bunny headline. So that's this page. Yeah. So let's see how that looks like in the administration interface when I go to pages. And the home page. Actually, on the page tab, there is only the Bing Maps widget. I can add here another one, and I don't really have the widget here. So let me check. What did I do wrong here? So there is no change here, so that should be fine. The controller is correctly configured. So I think we should be fine here. Properties, that should be all good. Oh, I think I forgot one last thing, and that is I forgot to put the assembly discoverable in the properties and assembly info. So that's another thing I should have done. So let's try to compile this one again. Oh, I also need to include the namespace. Okay, when I'm done, I just need to reload this page. It's gonna take a second. Oh, that was really quick. I think I also need to build the solution. So I just need the site to start again so that it can discover all the assemblies that are available here. Let's see if this is gonna work. Otherwise, I'll just need to restart the IIS site. Or it's also possible I did another mistake somewhere. We'll see soon enough. Okay, so it's start it. And you can see that there is the Giphy selector among other widgets. Yeah, so that was the mistake. Now when I add this one, you see it doesn't have any configuration dialog here because I didn't define any configuration properties. But it also does not have any representation because there is no URL, so it doesn't have anything to render. Yeah, otherwise I would see the content right here. So I'll save this just for now. And I want to show you another thing of the widget, and that is the inline widget properties. Now we've basically covered this article, so I'll switch to another article because we have one that goes a bit deeper into building the widgets, and that is the converting a portal engine widget to an MVC widget. And this actually explains how to create the inline editors. So here you see the standard properties, and those are the ones that I can show you on the Bing Maps widget. Yeah, these are the standard properties in the dialog window. But here there are also the inline editors. Now the inline editors are the thing that I wanna do now, and you can see here that for an inline property editor there are a few steps that you need to do. First of all, the green box here, as you see it, is composed from another model and view, and the data that you change via the inline property editor needs to be emitted back to the original widget via JavaScript. Now, I haven't yet created a widget like that, or inline property editor for a widget like that, so we'll see how actually complicated this is, but I hope it wouldn't be that hard. So first of all, I need to define a property name and the value. I need to define the property name because the JavaScript that emits the data back needs to tell the original widget which property is changing and what's the value of the change. Yeah, and of course, when the view is initialized, the widget is initialized, it needs to the inline property editor needs to know the value that was already stored for the widget. Yeah, so that's why I'm defining the model name and value. Name is for emitting the data back, and value is for initialization of the inline page editor or inline property editor. So I'll just create a new model like this. Let's go back to the Giphy selector widget and create a new model here. So Giphy selector widget, or we can say search inline property editor. I think this is model. So let's call this one search text box model. I'm in a external or dedicated class library, so I can actually name the model list any way I want. Yeah. This should actually be also public. It should contain the property name and value properties. I think these are too far away. Okay. So in my case, the property name is gonna be search, so search query to do something. Or actually, this is not gonna be a search. This is gonna be URL. Sorry, the property name will be URL because I'm changing the URL of the image. That's what the widget wants to store, and the value is gonna be the Giphy URL. The search query will be handled internally within this editor. So I'll save that. Let's see where we are. So that's the model. And I will need to define the partial view for the inline editor. So I'll just copy this thing and create the partial view here. And I need to do that in the main project again. Yeah, so I'll just put it under a Giphy selector widget. gonna be search text box editor, or just search text box. Okay, I'll just paste whatever I had there. Now the model is gonna be the search text box model. And I'll just copy paste the namespace as well. Okay. And I will need to use the using HTML Kentico begin inline editor. And here I think what we're doing is we're defining the name of the inline editor. So let's call this one a search text box editor. And we need to provide the property name. So that's coming from the model. Yeah, this one is still underlined, so let's compile the Giphy selector widget. Oh, I think I also need to fix the namespace here. Okay, now we should be good. Perfect. And here what I'm actually defining is the view how the inline page editor is how the inline property editor is going to look like. So this is actually how this red box is going to look like. Yeah. So this is the front end that I will need to look like. So in my case, let's put here h3. First, let's put here an input box. For the search. And I think we will need an h3 here. So this is just text. And I think that here we will need to display the elements. Let's use a list item element. And that's all I need to do here. So there's not going to be any path, anything like that. Now we're defining this box that will contain the functionality. It depends how you want to handle the functionality that goes to the Giphy.com and gets the data back. Yeah, and how you enable the user to select the right image they want to use. Now I would actually use a JavaScript for this because using that or implementing that in the MVC would be a bit more difficult. So I would just use here Vue application. I'd probably use a Vue.js for this. And let's say I'll have here the list of all the possible images. And the good thing is that the JavaScript needs to then send the data back, so we will need some amount of JavaScript anyway. So we might as well start with it. But what we will definitely need to have here, we will definitely need the API key. Now, if we store it in the Vue.js implementation, or if we store it in the configuration of the page, doesn't really matter because we will need to have it in the JavaScript code anyway. So for the sake of this example, I'll store it in the web config, just like I do with the Bing Maps API key. So I'll store here, let's call this one Giphy API key. Right now there is nothing there, but what I will need to do here is I will need to change the search text box model, which contains a value, but when I'm searching for the Giphy image, I don't really need the value. I don't really care what kind of image is stored in the widget because it's already going to be displayed. So I need only the property name, and instead of value, I will put here an API key. Yeah, I don't need the value. I don't need the URL of the image that is already displayed because I'm not going to probably be searching for the same one, so I will need the API. I will put there the API key instead. And here in the search text box, I will have access to that key. Yeah. So what I can do here is I can put here a little script. And I will include the Vue.js here and provide the implementation here. But what's important is that at some point I will need to transmit the data back. I think it's this piece of code. Yeah, I will need to emit the data back into Kentico, and this is exactly the code that does that. It's registering the inline editor. So in my case, it's not a page type selector, but it's a search text box editor. And here it actually defines what should happen and when. In my case, I don't really need to have the init because it's not initializing anything. And here it's actually adding an event listener for a change of the search box. I will actually try to handle all of this using the Vue.js, so I will need only this part. I will need to create a new custom event, and I will need to dispatch it. So I will definitely need the reference for editor. So that's this part. I don't think I need to do this. So I'll just keep it as a minimum here, yeah? I'll just try to init. And I will need not use the var editor here, but I will use window global object. So window, let's call this one search or Giphy selector search editor. So that we have the instance ready in the window, regardless of in which context we are. And I think that we don't really need this part, but I can leave it there. But let's remove it for now. And here I will need to provide the Vue.js implementation that will emit the custom event and dispatch it. Then I can remove all of this. Perfect. So now it comes to the Vue.js implementation. Let's go take a look. I'll take a look at here. So we're prototyping or learning purposes. That's exactly what I'm looking for right now. So here I'll just put the JavaScript somewhere in the search box, or you can put it completely elsewhere in the Giphy selector widget, for example. Or what you can also do is download the script and put it into a specific folder. And just like the Vue, you will actually need to copy it to the original widget library to create the NuGet package. Because if you put it there, just like this article suggests, to place the file in the content inline editors page type selector, when you do that, Kentico will actually take that JavaScript and compile it and minimize it for any site that actually uses that. So it's one of the other ways how to do it as well. But I don't really want to download it because it's available on the CDN. So I'll just keep it here. Hopefully it's gonna work. We'll see. Haven't tried it yet. And this part will actually need to be filled by the Vue application. Now we already have Vue there, so what I can do is create a new app here. New Vue. Now for this part, I will actually borrow something from a project I already created last or 2 weeks ago. So let me check the web template I created. Oh, not this one. So if you watch the last episode, there is the Vue component definition here. We played around with Vue.js a bit. But what I'm looking for right now is this part. So the application is new Vue. And we need to bind it to a specific element. So let's call this one Vue app. Perfect. So now I have the instance here. What I will need to do is create. Oh, we actually did everything in components, I think. This is going to be a bit different because I will need to do implementation in the application itself. So let me check another implementation. I think this one will work. Right. So I will definitely need data. And the data actually stores all the variables that you will need for the selector. So in my case, I will definitely have images. That's okay, we can leave that here. But I will also need to have a selected image, which will currently be null. Yeah, in case the selected image changes, I will need to emit the fact that it changed back to the original widget. So we're back to this part and emitting the widget when the selection changes, right? So what I can do here is I can put here a watcher, which is another object that actually takes the variable name it should watch, and it's a function that gives me value, the new and old value. If you need it, I need only the new value, so that's why I'm doing this. And in here I will actually need to send the event. So here I'm creating new custom event for update property, and in the detail I just need to provide a value. The value I already have in the model, so it's the property name of the model. Oh, sorry, that's the name, not value. And the value will be the selected image. So I can say this selected image or a val, because I already have the value here. Okay. So of course the images and the selected image will be represented only by a URL of that image, nothing else. Now when I have that event, what I need to do, and I think I lost it somewhere here, but I will definitely need to emit that event. So I'll just copy it again. It's the editor dispatch event. And this actually comes from the window. The reference is stored here. So dispatch event, the event is here. I'll actually switch that to let, so that we only have it available locally. And this should be fine. When I change the selected image, it will actually select the image and send the event. Now what I also need is a code that actually displays the images based on the search box. Now the search box is here, but I will actually need it to be within the Vue app so that I can access its value. So I'll put it here. And I will bind it to a model. Let's call that model search query. Now this gets very easy because then I can just put here another data property, which is called search query. Call that null. And whenever I change something in this input, it will automatically change this value. So what I can do here is when the search query changes, and of course there should be some kind of a timeout, right? So that it doesn't really do the same action multiple times. But what I can do here is I can watch for this property as well. Search query. Or what I can do is put here a button that will actually trigger a function. So if someone puts here a search query and enters or clicks a button, then it's gonna do the search. But for this case, I will just use the watch for that property. Now when that happens, I need to go to Giphy. I need to get the list of 5 last or the 5 most relevant images and display them. In this case, I don't really want to go over the actual Giphy implementation. So what I will do is, I know that there is a custom element for the Kentico Cloud, so I will just take a look at that one. I think it's the Giphy picker. So I'll just take a look at the implementation and copy whatever I can. So let's take a look. So we're not looking to set up anything, but we're looking for search Giphy, and specifically for this part. So this is the API, the URL, and this is how we actually create the request. But I think that we are using jQuery here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's jQuery. I don't really want to use jQuery here because I already use Vue.js. Of course, I could do that for the sake of this example and for the sake of speed of implementing this. But I will actually rather use Axios, which is a library for JavaScript that is capable of streamlining the process of creating requests and composing or consuming responses. So I'll just take this thing, minimized preferably, and I'll put that in my view. Okay. And the rest I will just copy. So you see that we're actually doing, or we're getting JSON here from this URL. And we're generating this, this HTML output from that. But I think that we also need to get, or we also need to provide some additional parameters, at least the API key. Let's check where we have that. Yeah, I think this is what's doing that. So we're adding the parameters here. So let's copy that here so far. And the query string for each key in params, and params is here. Let's check where we are, where we have params. So the Q is the search query. So in the search, Q will be search query. But we will also need something more, I think. So this is where we have params. Oh, here we go. So these are all the params that we will need, yeah? So we will need the API key, definitely. But we'll also need maybe limit, offset, rating, and language. I will just use the limit to limit the number of elements. Let's do it fixed to five items. And the rest we know. The API key is already provided, and the search query we have from the input text box. So let's try to actually put the API key here. I already created the API key on the Giphy.com, so I will just copy paste it. Just give me a second. I hope I'm still logged in. Yes, I am. Perfect. I'm actually not sure where to find the API key, so it may take a second. I think it's under here. I'm actually working on another screen, so just give me a second. Oh, here, developers. Perfect. So I have the API key, and now we can try it if it's gonna actually work. So this is my API key. Please don't misuse it. And let's put here a search query, and let's see what kind of results we get. Perfect. So we get some JSON here. It's not really limited, I'm afraid. Oh, we have 5 elements here, it seems. And we have the URL for each of those items. Please allow pop-ups here. So this is the first item. That's for happy. Okay, that looks good. And we don't really need anything else. We just need the URL. So you see that we get a nice JSON as a response. So now it should be quite easy to compose the request. So let's go back to Visual Studio. And I don't really want to compose the request by myself, so I'll just Google for an example. Okay, promise-based, that's good enough for me. Okay, here we go. So this is what I'm looking for, I think. Get, then response or error. Or we could do it with params, a bit more clean way how to do it. Okay, let's try this. We'll see if that actually works. So let's remove this. And I will also need, I think, here Axios require Axios. At least that's what they say. Cool. Now, in here, I'm not looking for /user, and I'm also looking for a specific URL, so I'll just copy that URL. I hope I didn't lose it. Here it is. So I'm looking for this URL, and parameters are the queue, that is the search query. In this case, the search query was changed, so I will have the value here in val. Otherwise, I could also write this search query. Yeah, it's the same thing. So I'll just stick with val. The other parameter is the API key. Now the API key I have available in the MVC model. So I will put it in this property, or I can do it this way. Model API key, or I can put it in a JavaScript variable and then use that variable here. that's another parameter, and I think the last parameter is limit to 5. Okay. Oh, this is wrong because then I have to process the response. So then when I get the response here, I could do console.log, but I already know how the response looks like. Yeah, so I'll get data and the array of 5 elements. So what I can do now is define that this images. I'm changing the data set in this images actually, and it will be the same array. It's also going to be array, but only of URLs. So let's define a function that will actually map that, and I'll just take item and the URL. Right? Nothing else. I don't need anything else. Just the URL. Item.url. So this will actually give me an array of only the URLs that I can then display. Okay, if there is an error, we can log it. We don't need any final code, so I think we're good this way. This keeps moving to the right. Okay, so this is the search function. You can remove the rest. Okay, I think we're good. Now the last part I need to do is define how the images should be displayed. So first thing I will need to define is that the unordered list will be displayed only in case there are any images, right? And for no vocab, but v4 for every image in images, I will display this list item element, which will display an image. That image will have the URL based on the array of data here. So in this case, it's going to be image, right? This is actually the URL. This array holds all the URLs, and I'm saying for each image in images, just tell me the URL. Alternative text will be empty. Or I could potentially create a new object here to not only take URLs, but create a new object here that contains URL and also a title or something like that I could display here as alternative text or as a text next to it. Yeah, but right now I'm just aiming to display the URLs or display the images using their URLs. Okay, so this will actually display all the URLs. And the last part I need to do, or the last thing I need to do is, oh, what's wrong here? I think this is fine. The last thing I need to do is, in case someone clicks an image, then the selected image is changed. This property is changed, right? In that case, I'll again go to documentation of Vue.js. And let's see how we can do that. So we want a method event handler. So v on click, or we can actually do it even this way. We can say that on click, the selected image equals this image. Right? So when this happens, this property is changed. This watcher for the selected image will be executed, and the event will be created and emitted back to the Kentico widget, which in turn will store the value. Yeah, we'll see if that's going to work. But I think that here we are pretty much done. The only thing that you also need to do when you create the inline property editor, as it's also described here, is you need to include that inline property editor in the widget's main view. Yeah, that's what this code is actually doing. So I'll copy that in the Giphy selector widget. So there is the image. We'll probably want to put it above that. I don't think we want this styling, so let's just keep it as it is. And here you see that there is a condition here that if context is in edit mode, so we're looking for the context of the Kentico page builder. If we're in the edit mode, so it's not going to be displayed on the live side, yeah, it's only going to be displayed in the edit mode. Then we also want to render the inline editor, and in this case the partial is going to be not in the inline editors, but it's going to be in the widgets / Giphy selector widget search text box. Now I have it in this folder just to actually separate it from any other property editors. That's because this inline property editor has a specific use case. Yeah, it can only be used for the Giphy selector, so it wouldn't make sense to put it elsewhere. Now I need to provide the editor, the editor model. So in my case, it's not a path text box editor model, but it's a search text box model. And of course, I should get the right namespace, which in my case it's Kentico community, Giphy selector widget, search text box model. And in here, I don't really have a value. I will property name, which in my case is name of URL. Yeah, because I already have the URL in this model. And instead of value, I provided here an API key. So the API key should come from the configuration. Here we don't really have a controller, so you have basically two options. Either you can add the API key here, like here to the model of the actual widget, because the inline editor doesn't really have its own controller. So you can put it here, and then you will have it available in the model object, yeah, API key, or you can just define it in the JavaScript or define it here as a text. It's basically up to you. But if you do it this way, so that the main widget actually needs to provide the API key, in that case you will need to fill it here among the URL. Yeah, so we need to say view model API key, and I will actually take that from the Bing Maps widget, because I did the same thing here. It's coming from the configuration manager. Yeah, of course I can do it this way as well, to keep it all in a single assignment. Cool. Now let's try to build everything. We'll see if I did any mistakes. Usually when I build something and it works after the first build, something is going really wrong. So it seems to be built correctly, but I'm sure we will stumble upon some issues. So let's see here. Let's reload the page. We'll see. Okay, now we get the headline. Still waiting for the page builder. And it seems like the registration of the Inline Editors search text box editor failed. Now let's see what the event log says. Well, we still see the search button here. We can also take a look at the console. That's usually a good resource of issues. Okay, I'm missing something after a property list. Missing bracket. So let's check. Maybe I did a mistake in my JavaScript. So this one is closed, I think. Yeah, here is the issue. So I think right now, oh, this is also wrong. This is the init function, and I'm missing one bracket here. Right. So let's see if that actually fixes it. Okay, let me actually recompile this. But maybe there is another one. Yeah, expected expression got a comma. Maybe I have another mistake here somewhere. No, this is fine. Function, that should be okay. Watch is also fine. Nope, this should be fine. This is coming from the page builder. Let's see. Okay, we're still getting the syntax error. Expected expression got comma. In the render markup. Maybe I have a mistake here. And I think I also need to put quotes here. Okay, let's see if this is gonna help. Oh, we don't have a require defined. In that case, I think it's already defined by the library. So let me see if this is gonna work. Okay, now we don't have a view here, which means that I'm loading Vue after I actually need it here. So I can fix that. Yeah, I can put that before here, but only in the edit mode. Yeah, I don't want to render or download Vue.js for the live site implementation. Okay, still we're getting the same error here. Let's try it once again. Still Vue is not defined. Okay, let me move that into this piece of code. So we're loading Vue here and Axios as well, so that should be fine. Okay, let's check what we're getting there. Okay, Vue should be registered as a global variable. Let's try to use this one, but maybe we will need to move it to header of the page, which means in this case it would be best to download the file and put it into the respective folder so that Kentico minimizes that and includes that on the page. Okay. Still getting the same error. So let's take a look if that is actually downloaded at all. Oh, here we have it, Vue.js. Okay, let's try to Google for it. Right, so it seems it needs to be in the head tag. Let's try that. I'll try this one, or actually put them both in the head of the page. We'll see if that'll help. Okay, this seems to be fine. So let's see. Okay, we got a network error. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which actually corresponds to 5 letters that I input. So that's nice. And we're looking at a cross origin policy. And we need to add a access control allow origin header here. So let's take a look how we can do that with Axios. I think this one would be good. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's add a header to an Axios request. We have params here. We should have headers here as well. Okay, I think we can do it this way. URL, data, and config. So in my widget, it's this part. Get URL, data, and then headers. So we can do it this way. This should actually go one level to the right. Okay, so we need to include the header, access control origin, and value should be star. Okay, let's see if this is gonna help. But you see, we're slowly getting there. The search box seems to work. So right now, we're still getting errors. But you see that the query is being correctly set. So here is the queue happy. API key is also correctly set, including the limit, but we're still getting errors for the course header missing. So I'm still doing something wrong with the request. So the URL, data, and then headers. This is not what I'm looking for. Let's try to look for it this way. this is for the response. So at this point, let's take a look at how the custom element actually solves it. Seems like there is no course here. Origin? No. So maybe the issue is that I'm on a local domain here. Let's check another link here. But maybe it's the problem of the response. Let's see. Well, there is a star here for the access control allow origin. So let's check when we're looking for the data. Let's check the request here. So we're looking for the api.giphy.com. Okay, here we go. This is the search query, and for some reason it's forbidden. Let's check why. We got invalid authentication credentials, so probably there is something wrong with my API key. So let's see. So this is the requested URL. And I think I have one extra character here. Oh, this is a... Oh, I see what the problem is now, because I'm using a wrong API key in the controller. Right, so I didn't change the Bing Maps API key here to be the Giphy API key. So that's once again my mistake. So let's use this. And of course I left that blank, so another mistake here. So let's switch that here, and let's take that API key and put it to the configuration of the main application. Okay, now I have to rebuild it. So now hopefully it will work. It's gonna take a second to build. Of course, when I change the configuration or the controller implementation, I have to build everything. If I change only the views, I can just reload the page and everything will work. Yeah, so that's the difference. Now it's gonna take a bit longer. So I probably didn't really have to change the Axios implementation. Right, so this shouldn't be necessary, but we'll see. I'll just keep it there just in case. Let's check the console. getting the headline in. So we should see no issues here. That's fine. Bing map was actually downloaded. And let's see here. So data map is not a function, but that's good. We're getting some data. Data map is not a function, so that means the data is not containing array. So let's see. Oh, here we are actually. So we're getting this issue here. So what I do at this case is I just log whatever I'm getting here. Okay, now it's just downloading and initializing the page builder. And here we should see what we actually get here. So we got the data and there is data again. So it's nested for one additional level, which is strange. Let's check the actual response. Okay, let's see the response here. So we got the data of the response, and then we got another data of the actual response from Giphy. So that explains it. So let me put here additional data here. Now the mapping function should work. Again, while till the page builder is initialized. Here we go. Okay. So we probably got the data in the images here, but for some reason we don't really see them in the list. So let's check what's the problem in the code. Okay, the UL is here, but the elements are not rendered. So let's see here. What we can do here is do a bit of a console output. I use this when I need to evaluate when something's wrong. So this should show me what is in the actual array. Okay, property or method image. Did I do image? I wanted to do images, sorry. Let's do it again. Okay, now you see the images array is now empty. If I put here age, it's still empty. Yeah, we're not, for some reason, we're not getting the data in. So the problem is probably still something in here. So let's see. At this point, I will just log what's coming out of this mapping function. Maybe the problem is here. Let's try it. Of course, it's possible to install Vue.js extensions. I think they are available for Chrome browser. actually use Firefox now, so I cannot really do that, but I think I can figure this out quickly. Yeah, so this is fine. These are the URLs of the happy images. So for some reason I'm not getting that in the data. Maybe I can fix that by providing the data variable here. Let's see if that's gonna work. Maybe there's a naming issue. We'll see if this is gonna help. In the meantime, I'll take a look at the other implementations, how I did there. Maybe I just missed this as well. Yeah, in the functions, you see I'm using this dollar and data, so that was the thing that was missing here. Let's see if that's gonna help. This data is undefined, okay. Query. Okay, then let's take a look. This data should be fine, but that's in component, so I need to go here, and here I'm using also this data, so that should definitely be defined. Created. Or maybe I need to do it in a different notation here to get also access to this object automatically. Let's see if that's gonna help. Okay, now we got at least the array here, that's correct. Let's see if the images why the images cannot be loaded. Let's see, because I think that this actually leads to a Giphy page, so maybe we're looking for a wrong property. Oh, I think we're looking for this one. Let's try this one. It doesn't really seem like the guy's happy, but no, this is also not the right one. Maybe this one. Oh. Let me check actually the custom element again. Find out which is the right property. I think we'll find the answer here. Yeah. Looking at Giphy URL, so it's in the item images fixed height URL. Let's see. So fixed height, and here you have the actual URL. So we will need to probably boil down a bit more. So not just the data URL, but it's actually the item here. Images fixed height URL. Okay, I'm probably not going to be able to finish everything in this 2 hours frame, but I will finish everything and put it to GitHub and share the link in the article about the office hours. So feel free to check there the rest. But you can see here we're finally getting the images. And when I click on the one, you see that it was already selected. So when I save it, I should see that image now. Hopefully, we'll see if that works. Yeah. So I still see that image here, right? And when I look for something else, I get a different set of images. Now I can click on one, select it, and you see that it's already selected. Save that widget, and we're still fine. So it will require some polishing, but you see that the widget is actually working quite well. Okay. I will, as I said, I will finish this one. I will put some nice touches to it, and I will put it to GitHub. Feel free to check it out, and feel free to take a look at in the next 2 weeks. Actually, in 2 weeks, we're gonna have a special co-host here, so keep this Twitch channel on, and I will see you next time.